Hi everybody, welcome back to the Meta Quest 2 and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and of course we are in the Flying Iron Spitfire. Now I've been playing around with the settings on the Meta Quest 2, so now you should be getting widescreen video, hopefully at a slightly better quality than I had before. And I have messed around with the settings where I should be getting better quality on the headset as well. Now obviously you're watching this on YouTube, so it's not going to be like, when I'm actually in the experience in the game. But the idea of these videos is that if you're thinking about getting a Meta Quest 2 and you're casually enjoy something like Microsoft Flight Simulator, and you're thinking, is it worth it? Do I get an immersive experience? Is it a good experience? Well, the idea is that I fly around and I kind of tell you, my initial thoughts. I've had a few hours in the flight sim with the Meta Quest 2 now, and I've had a pretty good time generally, and a pretty amazing time, and a frustrating time as well at others. The beauty with the Meta Quest 2 obviously is the price. It's very, very cheap, and I guess the replacement, the Meta Quest 3 Lite or whatever it is, will be cheap as well. And I've got to say that if you are a casual gamer into something like Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, then I think it definitely is worth the experience, even if you're a casual player like myself, where I'm playing with an Xbox controller. I do have a HOTAS, but I'm using an Xbox controller because it's easier to use when I can't actually see my hands. Now, the Flying Iron Spitfire that you see here, this is a paid extra. You don't get this with Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's worth getting if you're into your World War II aircraft and you're into Spitfires, because the detail that you get is absolutely amazing, and this really highlights the quality of the Meta Quest 2. I can kind of look at the metal on the dashboard, and you can see the different textures, where it's matte, where it's worn, where it's shiny, the little bits of metal that have rubbed off through wear. We can look down and look at all the amazing dials, and you see more detail in this than you do when you're actually looking at it on a flat screen. Where the detail kind of isn't as good is where I look into the distance, say at those trees in the distance, and they're definitely a little bit fuzzy compared to what I would expect to see on my monitor. But I guess maybe that could well be, it's simply due to draw distance and the fact that my gaming PC, the Lenovo Legion T5 RTX 3070, is having to draw two versions of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 at the same time, and then send it to the Meta Quest at 72. I think it's 72 frames a second. So there've got to be some compromises somewhere. Okay, so without further ado, then, let's see if we can get this kite in the air. Now I'm going to try and take off in third person because I'm very good at crashing in first person in the Spitfire. Oh dear me. Undercarriage up. Our wingman is with us. Right, here we go. So let's head on over to the coast. So we're actually flying around Malta, which was very famous during the Second World War. I think it's the only place that was given the George Cross as a medal, because the Italians and the Germans just pummeled this place during the war to try and get them to surrender, and I guess prior to a planned invasion. But that never happened, which meant that Malta could then be used as a springboard for the Royal Navy and submarines and bombing missions, and most importantly, intercepting supplies that were being sent by the Germans over the Mediterranean to Rommel's Afrika Korps, which ultimately obviously led to their defeat, and then on to the invasion of Sicily and Italy after that. So one of the turning points for the war in Malta was the arrival of Spitfires, because one of the problems they had was that they had some Hurricanes, and the Hurricane, a great fighter. Look at that shadow there. Doesn't that look absolutely amazing? An absolutely fantastic fighter, but its rate of climb from takeoff wasn't as good as the Spitfire. So that if you didn't have any warning of an air raid, you just suddenly saw these junkers coming in to bomb the place. The beauty of the Spitfire is the pilots could jump in, get up to altitude, and intercept the German aeroplanes, hopefully before that became too much of a threat. And a lot of definite lessons were kind of learnt in the defence of Malta, and lots of brave people lost their lives defending Malta, civilians, military people, and in the Royal Navy, sort of supplying Malta with fuel and stuff, and the merchant navy as well, and from countless other nations. So I thought it would be a nice place to fly around. Also, being an island, the draw distance out there, there's not much out there, so I thought the gameplay might be a little bit smoother as well. So what are my impressions of the MetaQuest 2 with Microsoft Flight Simulator? And I've got to say, in this particular environment, this is very, very impressive indeed. I mean, look at the detail in the aircraft. The detail outside is good enough. It is a little bit fuzzy, but I would expect it to be fuzzy, because you've got to have some compromises. And what you're seeing there is actually, if you're seeing a little bit of stuttering, this is something that can happen, because what with the MetaQuest, what you're relying on is the quality of your Wi-Fi connection. So it's a wireless system. You can use a wire if you want, but I'll talk about it in a minute. But it's a wireless system. So my gaming PC is streaming the graphics over our Wi-Fi network to the headset. So what that means, if someone starts watching Netflix, or a computer starts doing a big download or something like that, and we don't have particularly good internet here anyway, that can affect the streaming performance slightly. Also, we are playing Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, which is streaming the world to my computer for it to render, for it to then send it to the MetaQuest 2. Most of the time it's lovely and smooth, but occasionally you will get these stutters. And the better the internet connection you have, and the better the home Wi-Fi system you have, 5 GHz or that sort of stuff, the less of those problems you're gonna encounter. I had a few frustrations with setting up a wired connection, because I wanted to see if that is much better, and I got a long 5-meter USB Type 3 lead specifically for that, but it didn't work. My computer would recognise the headset being connected to it, but the transfer software wouldn't work. I think that's because the lead was just too long, and maybe something to do with the USB port on my computer wasn't powered or something like that. So I need to do some more experimenting with that. But I also kind of came to the conclusion that perhaps most of my testing should be like this. It should be in the wireless mode, because if you're a casual gamer where you don't have a flight set up with a seat and a HOTAS and stuff like that, basically you want to fire up your computer, put your headset on, connect the software, and you just want to go. And you don't want to be connecting wires that you can trip over and you have to undo, and they get tangled with your other wires and stuff like that. So maybe this is the best way to judge it. And it looks absolutely fantastic. So I've kind of got to say that even if you're just a casual player of Microsoft Flight Simulator and you've got a gaming PC, and the thought of VR is kind of tickling your fancy a little bit, I've got to say, at this price, you really should dive in. Now, at the moment, obviously, the MetaQuest 2 is $199 in most places, or £199, which is a bit of a bargain. The thoughts is that they're selling it this cheap to kind of perhaps clear them out in preparation for the next model, which might be the MetaQuest 3 Lite or something like that. But if the quality is as good as or better than the MetaQuest 2, and the price is similar, then I think it's definitely a billy bargain, and it's something you should think about investing in and having a play with, because it really is a fantastic piece of kit. Now, remember, the MetaQuest 2, not only being a wireless PC VR headset, it's also a standalone VR headset. So what that means is it's got its own operating system inside it, so you can install apps inside it and play things like Beat Saber, Resident Evil 4, dozens and dozens and dozens of different games that you can install and actually play on the device without it being connected to a computer at all. So you can take it and play it anywhere you like, which is absolutely fantastic. And I will be doing sort of videos exploring that side of using the MetaQuest 2. But as a PC VR headset, so far, with something like Microsoft Flight Simulator, I've been very, very, very impressed indeed. And the next things, I guess, next gameplay videos I'm going to be doing to kind of show you, we're going to be looking at things like Ilsturmovik games, and we're going to be looking at things like Euro Truck Simulator. These are all games that I've got built-in VR capabilities, and then we're going to be looking at games that we mod VR into to have a go with them. So things like Resident Evil 2 Remake, 3 Remake, Resident Evil 7, things like that as well. So there we go. In summary then, I've got to say, very impressed so far with the Meta Quest 2 and something like Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. The quality is much higher than I thought it would be. And aside from some sort of connection frustrations, which as I've got to know the system and how it works, and the logistics as well of simply having a headset where, although you can put it into pass-through mode and see what's around you in black and white, it's things like if you wear glasses, when you take the headset off and you pop your glasses on, where do you put your glasses afterwards? Where do you put your Xbox controller so you don't lose it? How do you get hold of your mouse? All these sort of things, but these will come with time. I've been very, very impressed so far, and I'm looking forward to making lots more videos about VR and the Meta Quest 2 and getting the most out of it, and sort of lots of hints and tips and that sort of stuff, and gameplay experiences. So if you're thinking about getting one, or you've got one and you're thinking about which apps or software you should have a go with, I can say, well, look, in my experience as a casual VR user, these are definitely worth playing around with because they're an awful lot of fun. Whew, okay, so there we go. So that's enough from me. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you have, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe. And of course, I'll see you again soon.